22nd. Now it's official. I call to order the February 22nd, 2021 regular business meeting of the Waynesboro City Council. We're still doing this by Zoom and not in person, so we'll have a time in here for public comment towards the end of our meeting. If citizens wish to participate in public comment, they may call at the appropriate time. The telephone number, I think, is going to be on our screen. Great. Is on our screen, 844-844-9200. You will be prompted to enter the meeting code. Enter 398145 followed by the pound sign. You will hear Q&A session has started. At that time, press the *6. You will hear, if you'd like to speak, press 1. You'll be added. Press 1 at that time, and then wait until you're prompted by the moderator to speak. As a reminder, if you want to make citizen comment, we have a 4-minute time limit on this. And if you're speaking, somebody will cut in and let you know when you've got 30 seconds left, and you can start winding down your comments. With that, we move on to agenda item number 2. Agenda item number 2 is to adopt the meeting agenda. Do we have a motion to adopt the meeting agenda as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye in a show of hands.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you all. Item number 3 is to consider the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Any discussion? All in favor, show of hands, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Matters from mayor. Don't have a whole lot this week. I do want to thank our roads crew. They were out this weekend in the bad weather. They did a great job playing what they could. It was an ice condition, but they came through and knocked a big chunk of ice off and threw some chemicals down on the rest of the ice and made it a better place for all of our citizens to drive the next day. Item number 5 is matters from council. Does any council member have anything they would like to share? Dr. Sam does. He's smiling.
I always do, you know that. So just an update. As many of you have heard, the nation passed a milestone today of 500,000 deaths from COVID in less than last year, which is a sad milestone, but a milestone that we have now passed. The good news is that locally and statewide, our numbers are falling. And so we are finally seeing some positive developments there. Vaccines are becoming more available. And an update, I think I had mentioned the last meeting that they were going to be revising the state system, and that has now happened. And so it's all one clearinghouse for seniors in particular at this point, but also folks with health conditions can pre-register and get on the list, and then they will get a hold of you. For the minutes, and I don't know if we have this on the website yet or not, but the website to sign in is vaccinate.virginia.gov. And for those folks who might not have computer access or not feel comfortable doing it that way, there is a toll-free number, and that is 1-877-VAX-IN-VA. So VAXINVA. I have not found out what numbers those are, but you can spell that out on your phone, VAX-IN-VA. And that will, again, get you to a site that you can put your name on the list. I'm not sure if they can tell you when you will be called about an appointment, but that's how you can get yourself on the list here in the Valley. But that's good news that they're hopefully streamlining that and we continue to see increase in vaccine numbers in distribution. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Dr. Hofstetter. Very good news. Anyone else?
Yep, Mr. Mayor, I'd offer just to echo the congratulations, I think, to staff, and would appreciate that being shared with our public works crew. I got many compliments on the difficult situation that we're presented with the snow and the ice removal, and I've heard appreciative comments from members of the community, so I wanted to share that this evening. Next was likewise, I had the opportunity to attend the historical commission meeting the other evening, and enjoyed my time with them and what they've sort of got planned and their vision for the upcoming year as hopefully again conditions start to become more normalized and otherwise. But I did want to do a pitch. I know that we've got a few commissions and boards with some vacancies. There are some vacancies and opportunities on our historical commission. So I told them that I would do a little commercial for them this evening. And so I'm following through on that, and would welcome citizens' participation in that. You can visit the city's website and learn about all the vacancies that are available and get involved. They are meeting remotely through Zoom and the like. At the moment, but they would certainly value additional support and volunteers. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Anyone else? All right, so that brings us to item number 6. Item number 6 is considering adopting a resolution endorsing an economic development performance agreement between the City of Waynesboro, Waynesboro Economic Development Authority, and MP LCC to fund construction of a public improvement in support of Waynesboro Marketplace commercial development at 1930 Rosser Avenue. For those that don't know where that is, that's the old Ladd Elementary School. And Mr. Hitchens, you've got an update for us on this one.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. As you mentioned tonight, we're here to talk about the Ladd School redevelopment project and performance agreement to assist in the financial consideration of that development. As you may know, Ladd School was part of the Augusta County annexation by the City of Waynesboro in 1986. Augusta County operated it as an elementary school until 2014, when it was closed and put up for sale. It is approximately 13 acres located in a prime development area we call our regional retail area, but we constantly get phone calls looking for sites between Target and Walmart. And this, as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, is at 1930 Rosser Avenue, across from Walmart, across from Ruby Tuesdays, that general area. Since the school was closed in 2014, there's been a number of developers that have looked at this site and attempted to configure commercial, retail, and possible other uses for the site. 2015, there was one very serious developer who ultimately had it rezoned into part of it being highway business and part of it being a planned unit development. And we'll talk more about that in just a second. The project itself, as we're talking about it tonight, is approximately 70,000 square feet of development in 6 or 7 standalone buildings. And you can see the site here. It's the entire 13 acres identified with Rosser Avenue at the bottom. The commercial retail applications could be automobile related, quick serve restaurants, medical use, and potentially a grocery store. There are significant infrastructure costs as well as demolition costs to make this project a reality. And I'll take a few minutes to discuss those. There is a city wastewater plant, wastewater line, essentially running diagonally through this site. When Ladd School was actually in operation, our Public Works Department considered that particular portion of our wastewater system adequate at best, and have determined that that particular line needs to be abandoned. By abandoning that line, the developer of this project will realize additional costs, not only to connect to our existing sewer at the property line, but also dealing with the abandoned line. Those additional costs are estimated to be $100,000. Second, I mentioned the rezoning in 2015. Part of that rezoning included a number of proffers, some of which included redoing parts of Rosser Avenue to make traffic in and out of this particular site safer. Those proffers still exist and have been passed on to this current developer as being their responsibility, and those costs are estimated to be in the $400,000 range. Tonight, it's just as simple to consider this in two halves, although the zoning is not exactly in two halves, but for argument's sake, we'll say it is two halves. And the plan is to develop the front half, or the front that faces Rosser Avenue, by December 2022. So that would include the demolition of the school and building of these 5 individual buildings. Again, facing Rosser Avenue with Rosser Avenue frontage. The second portion, the rear part of that, potentially will need to be rezoned, and we are asking that to be done by December of 2024. So those are two key important dates that are built into the performance agreement that we'll be discussing here in a second. So remember that since 1986, the city has garnered exactly 0 cents in tax from this particular site. It's been a county site since then. Redevelopment of this site will bring the city future tax revenues from basically from this day forward. So once the property is sold to a developer, real estate property taxes will kick in. So the city will realize some property tax this year should we're able to put this performance agreement together and the developer completes his sale. We are proposing a 7-year performance agreement, which would begin in 2022, so therefore ends in December of 2029, or when the maximum benefit is paid out. I mentioned the two infrastructure costs of wastewater line and Rosser Avenue equals $500,000. Those are estimates. If the actual costs are less, then the lesser of those two numbers becomes the maximum benefit. So those are up to $500,000 or less. Built into the performance agreement are these two milestones. If 20% defined by the square footage is developed by 2022, then they're eligible for $100,000. If the complete development or 100% is developed by 2024, it will be eligible for the maximum amount of up to $500,000. The reimbursement or the payment of that money to the developer is 100% reimbursement of future tax revenue. Again, we would take this year as the base year, which, as you know, is currently under reassessment and tax rates haven't been determined, etc. But whatever this year's final full 12 months of property taxes becomes the base year. We subtract current future tax years tax base from the tax base and reimburse a percentage of that. Those percentages are detailed in the performance agreement. I can go over them if you want, but they are decreasing over time. So the first 2 years are higher, and then over the 7 years, they gradually decrease. That provides an incentive for the developer to build this quickly and start recouping the reimbursement for his cash, for his outlay. Again, this is 100% reimbursement. There is no upfront incentive on the city part. Developer pays all the costs for all the projects. They are responsible for paying all the taxes and all the fees, responsible for improving, making all the improvements to Rosser and the wastewater line. Then they request reimbursement through the EDA, and the EDA requests reimbursement from the city. The Economic Development Authority did review this at their regularly scheduled meeting on February 12th and approved it unanimously. That, Mr. Mayor, is the overview of the performance agreement. I'll be happy to review any particular piece of the performance agreement or answer any other questions council might have.
Thank you, Greg. I just had one question. When they start the project, does that start the highway part of the Rosser Avenue also with that first phase?
Yes, the Rosser Avenue improvements would need to be done with the first phase.
So that would put us ahead of the smart scale stuff and be a benefit for the city by us doing it that way.
So these are proffers that the city and VDOT included in the 2015 rezoning. So yes, we've get that
Okay.
improvement done.
All right, that's all I have. Thank you, Greg. Great job.
Sure.
Anyone else have anything for Greg?
I did have one question, Mr. Hitchin. Is this all reimbursement of real estate taxes, or was it sales tax as well?
It is a combination of real estate and sales tax.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Hostetter. Terry, you're unmuted, or you have a question?
I don't. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, I would just, offer appreciation to Greg and his staff for all the hard work in assembling this. So,
Thank you.
Okay. All right, well, if there's no other questions, do we have a motion to endorse the performance agreement between Waynesboro EDA and MP LLC regarding the commercial development of Waynesboro Marketplace at 1930 Rosser Avenue?
I'd make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Dr. Hostetter. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye in a show of hands.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Greg. You did a great job presenting and a great job getting this done.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, that brings us to item number 7, and I know Mr. Kreisler's been waiting here to patiently present to us. So item number 7 is to receive a presentation from Gary Kreisler, the Director of Emergency Management, regarding Next Generation 911. That even sounds fun, Greg. Gary, so tell us what you got.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you for the opportunity to present to you this evening. If I can, I need to share my screen. I have a brief PowerPoint presentation that will sort of walk us through this project.
I shared my screen earlier and couldn't figure out how to unshare, so just be ready.
Well, here we go. So Next Generation 911 is a project that's been forthcoming for a number of years. It's been in development on a national level. The national 911 industry, the associations that represent emergency communications and 911 have been working for a number of years to move our emergency communication or 911 centers into this new technology that's out there. It basically, it's going to be pretty much seamless to the community. They're not going to notice anything, at least for part of this, on the front end. They can still dial 911. It will still come to their local community based on service boundaries, and the dispatchers will manage the call for them. Where this really changes things is on the back end. Traditionally today, our 911 systems are built on analog telephone circuit technology. That limits our ability to do a lot of things. With this new technology, we will switch from analog telephone circuits to internet-based IP technology, much like a voice over IP telephone system. This will require a complete upgrade of the E911 network on a national level. That's going from analog circuit technology delivered by phone companies to the what's commonly known as the EZNet, or the Emergency Services Information Network. It is a nationwide public safety grade broadband network that is redundant, protected, high speed, that AT&T received the nationwide contract for that. They are actively building it out and so that they can deliver that service to the communities across the country. It will be a system of systems that will serve both local, state, and national needs. Not only will it, when it's complete, which will take a number of years, it will not only carry 911 traffic, but it will also carry other traffic to interconnect local, state, and national government. All of our systems that now have different interfaces will all ride on the ESINet when this is all complete. When you do that, you bring with that the robust capabilities of computer-based technology. There's so much software out there that can ride on this technology, and it will enhance it significantly. This upgrade is required to meet the demands of new telecommunications technologies that are already out there. As you know, a lot of folks today don't even have landline phones in their homes. Many of them use solely their wireless device. It is their home phone. It is their phone they take with them to work. No matter where they are, they have one phone number and they can be reached. This technology enhances the capabilities to locate those devices, as well as those that are using voice over IP telephones in their businesses or homes. While they may have a wired device, that wired device is also connected to the internet, and through software, you can use that phone pretty much anywhere in the world. So while it might be your home phone number, you might be using it in a hotel room thousands of miles away from where your house is. It also provides or prepares the system, for better location accuracy. The current accuracy is based on the GPS technology in the handsets, and then that gets the latitude, longitude of the handset gets transmitted back to the telephone switches, and it delivers that to the 911 center, and it triangulates it on a map. In some cases, that accuracy is really, really good, especially if you're outside. In other times, if you're in a building where coverage is limited and you have poor signal, that location can be off somewhat. So this will greatly enhance that technology. It also is because of the challenges to our existing 911 system that's really driving this upgrade, not just technology, but the old system relies on multiple service providers and technologies. It relies on multiple telephone companies that deliver different levels of service and technology. Some have features that aren't available in other communities. And these technologies and applications continually develop. Being able to ride this on a IP-based system will greatly enhance our ability to take advantage of that new technology. We'll think of this more instead of a local-based system. It'll meet national and global and regional and statewide needs of emergency communication. As we know, as I mentioned earlier, there's a great deal of increased flexibility and mobility of our citizens. Most people are not tied to a home phone anymore. Again, their mobile device or their voice over IP device goes with them wherever they are. The current 911 system is built out of 9 independent networks. It's extremely limited in the ability to process data. And most importantly is the old core analog switch technology is going to go away. And this will replace that. Again, it will be robust. It'll be nationwide. It can actually be global. You can transfer calls pretty much anywhere you need to, not only in the country, but in the world. So it's very robust technology. Again, why in Virginia is this happening? And I would like to say that I serve currently on the state E911 Services Board, and Virginia has been ahead of the curve in this project since day one. We are way ahead of other states in the nation, and Virginia has a lot to be proud of. We already have 911 centers in Virginia that have transitioned over to next generation 911 in the EZNet. So it's Virginia is light years ahead of some other states in the nation. The legacy network that I just mentioned, the old analog network, will be going away eventually. This will enhance the capabilities and bring us into the IP world. It delivers calls more appropriately to the appropriate 911 center faster than telephone circuits do. It allows us to transfer 911 calls and most importantly, any associated data that comes with those 911 calls anywhere. There's no limits to where you can transfer those calls. The other nice feature is that it will allow us, because it's an IP-based system, to interconnect other public safety systems on the ESINet, such as computer-aided dispatch systems, law enforcement records management systems, fire and EMS reporting systems, criminal databases, etc. Ultimately, when this is all done, all those systems could ride on this network, which means that we can then share that data across our state, across our nation, and even if necessary, across the world. It allows you to securely receive multimedia communications. So not only do we get voice, we can get text, photos, and videos. It greatly enhances what the citizen can provide to the 911 center when calls are delivered. The current deployment efforts of Next Generation 911 are driven by the Virginia 911 Services Board and the staff that supports that board. They continue to work with the local PSAPs, which stands for Public Safety Answering Point, with our GIS partners at both the state and local level, with AT&T, again, who is the nationwide vendor for the EZNet, and for other vendors that deliver the hardware that actually manufacture the call handling equipment that goes in the public safety answering point. It focuses on three primary project areas. The first is connectivity. That's making sure that all of Virginia's 911 centers have the ability to interconnect, to the EZNet, and that they have robust, diverse, redundant connectivity, meaning we just don't have one point of internet that our call handling equipment interfaces with. We're required to have that 5 nines of redundancy, where we connect with two different diversely routed, completely redundant, never touch each other internet connections that are secure and they're high speed, so that if one fails, the other can immediately pick up. AT&T works with us to make sure that we have that diversity and that we have that connectivity. Those circuits have been installed here in Waynesboro. Also, we upgraded our call handling equipment, more commonly known as the CHE. This is technology that resides at the 911 center, which in the past was hardware and software that interfaced with traditional analog telephone trunks and switches. We are still connected in that way in the temporary mode until we make the final transition or cut over to the ESINet, which is scheduled for the second quarter of this year. But our call handling equipment was upgraded in November of 2020. That equipment is complete, it's installed, it's functioning, it's been acceptance tested, and it's been paid for. So it's in place, and we're just waiting for that interface to the EZNet, which is driven by the state. The state is doing those transitions by what we call selective router regions. Selective routers are the telephone company switches that drive our current existing network, and the state's rolling that in areas where those selective routers are located. So they will be in our area in the second quarter of this year, and they will be making those transitions for the PSAPs in our area that will interconnect with the EZNet. Also ongoing, it's been very active, is this system is heavily driven on GIS data. And our local GIS department, Keith Paltz, with a lot of support from Keith, he's been wonderful to work with, is working with the state GIS division to make sure that all of our maps, all of our centerline files, our point addressing, and any other layers that we want to use, our EMS, fire, and law enforcement response layers, utility layers, any other layers that we want to integrate with the EZNet, making sure that they're right, they're doing matching, to make sure that we have very high level data matching as we go live with this system. So that's ongoing currently right now. The next generation 911 costs. The deployment includes that call handling equipment upgrade and replacement, which, as I noted earlier, was done in November of 2020. It includes the upgrade for Texta911, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes. And then it pays for the legacy 911 system transition over to the ESINet. The project cost that was developed between my office and the State 911 Services Board for Waynesboro was $217,822. That project was funded at 100% by the 911 Services Board, so we didn't have to find any local money at this point to pay for any of that transition. And a nice feature is that our recurring monthly costs that we do pay currently, that's in my line item budget, or the department's line item budget, are projected to decrease by about $200 a month. So while that's not substantial, overwhelming cost savings, it does save us some money in the long run. It's what it costs us per month. So this is just a snapshot of what the call handling equipment looks like. The picture on the left is the user interface that the dispatcher works with. The nice feature about this is the exact same vendor that we used on our previous system. So the interface looks exactly like it did on our old system, which makes it easy for training and transition for our dispatchers. There wasn't a lot of enhanced extra training that they had to do. The screenshot on the right is the interface between the 911 system and our computer-aided dispatch system and the mapping technology. That exists today in our old system. It will be enhanced when we switch over to the ESINet. If you look, that's currently a street centerline file you'll see all the point addresses on there. Those are individual houses or businesses. I only added a few layers so it wouldn't get so congested. We can overlay ortho photography, so we can actually see the current aerial photography that shows the individual houses and businesses. The triangles that are on there, the multicolored triangles, are fire hydrants, and those fire hydrants colors indicate the flow. So the fire department understands, if we tell them there's a red hydrant at the intersection of Evershire and Vine Street, they'll know high flow hydrant. So there's different colors for those. The nice thing about our computer-aided dispatch system is that we have mobiles in our police cars and our fire apparatus, and hopefully by the end of this calendar year, they will be installed in the first aid crew ambulances. That allows them to actually see these maps in the fire trucks, in the police cars, in the ambulances. They can see exactly where the incident is. It will provide routing for them. You can put pre-plans on a house or a business, and they can pull those up right from the apparatus. They can see the actual incident that the dispatcher creates with all the notes and information about the call. So that's our current call handling equipment interfaced with our computer-aided dispatch system. Texta911 was mandated by the Virginia General Assembly. We deployed that in May of 2020. It's a two-phase project. We're currently using software that's supplied by AT&T and developed by Intrado, which is a telecommunications vendor. It's a third-party application that rides on our desktops and will accept Texta911 calls. The call comes in and the dispatcher can text back and forth with the caller. It has a translation service built into it, so the dispatcher can type in English and translate it into one of a number of different languages. In the same token, the caller can be texting in another language, and it'll convert it over into English on our end so that we can communicate effectively. Some of the cell providers also support sending pictures. So a couple of our carriers actually, someone could take a picture of something and send it to the dispatcher, and we can attach it to the incident for fire, police, or EMS. The nice thing about Texta911 is it provides connectivity to 911 callers when they're unable to speak with us. That's particularly important with the hearing impaired. Older technology, which our 911 system has the ability of, when people had a TTY device in their home, that meant they were strapped to their home to be able to use that device, which looked a lot like a keyboard where they could type messages to us, and we would be able to type back and forth with them. We still have that technology. We will continue to have that technology for anyone who still uses it. But with so much wireless technology that's out there, again, more and more people have transitioned over to wireless handsets, smartphones. This makes it very easy for someone that's hearing impaired to communicate with us wherever they are. Currently, they would have to, or previously, they would have had to go on through the Virginia Relay Center, and the Virginia Relay Center would have called us, which delays things. With our system now, a hearing impaired person can text directly with us. Also, it's important in situations where, for example, if it were a violent situation, a domestic violence, somewhere where someone could not verbally communicate with us, but could text with us, they would have the ability to do that. We do, and then this is nationally, we prefer voice calling because that allows us to talk directly with the caller and get the specific information that we need. So while we have the technology, we do encourage, we still encourage our citizens to voice call whenever it's possible. And when they can't, if they can text, certainly that capability is available to them. And this is a screenshot. It's a little harder to see, and I apologize for the wavy lines. For some reason, when I took the picture of the screen, you can't see that when you're looking at it, but my camera grabbed it for some reason. But that's a current screenshot of our Texta911 software. If you'd see in here, it shows the lat long of the handset, which means we can click a map button and we could locate the handset, even as they text with us. And we can text back and forth with the caller. We have pre-canned messages and buttons. And again, you can do translation between English and any other language backwards and forth. And then we also have the ability to track all these, and all these messages are stored and kept in compliance with Virginia's Records Act. So that's a brief update, on where we are with Next Generation 911 and where we are with our Texta911 features. Are there any questions?
Hey, Gary, I do have a quick question. I think you answered it, but you got so much in that head of yours, it just kind of oozes out all over the place. When I'm in the county, and if I had to use that Text911 and I texted something in, would that put me through to Augusta County, Stanton, or Waynesboro, or?
The system knows, and even before this, it knows based on which sector of the cell tower and which cell tower you hit, as to where it should send the call to.
Okay.
So if you're on a cell tower in the county, and you can actually, with cell towers, and we split them up. When I say we, my counterparts in Augusta, in Stanton, Nelson, and other places, you meet and you discuss, you look at the cell towers and where the majority of the calls from those towers are going to be going to, and you can actually separate it by sectors. If you look at a cell tower, you'll notice on the top of it, it looks like it's got panels all the way around the top. Those are sectors. And you can say, well, I want the northwest sector to go to Waynesboro, but I want the southeast sector to go to Augusta County. and I want the northwest sector to go to Nelson, when you've got one that's setting on a boundary line. If you've got one that's right in the middle of our city, the whole thing comes to Waynesboro, or the whole thing goes to Stanton, or the whole thing goes to Augusta County. So it knows where the call is supposed to go, and it routes it to the proper 911 center.
Great information. Thank you, Gary. You did a great job. Anyone else? Dr. Sam, you're unmuted. Let's go.
I am. All right. What is the plan for sort of getting the word out? Is there going to be a public service campaign or marketing campaign to sort of get the word out about the Texta911 and things like that? Because apparently it's been available, but I've not been aware of it. Don't know if others.
We did a media release, and it's on the website and on our webpage back in May when we rolled it out. And so we did do a media release related to that. The plan is to do more of that going forward to make sure that folks know that technology is available. The nice thing about Texta911, wherever you are, is if you text to 911 and it's not available in your area, you're going to get a bounce back message to your cell phone that says this service is not available. If it is available, the call is going to go through. It's available in Augusta, it's available in Stanton, it's available in the Charlottesville, Albemarle area. Actually, it's available in the majority of Virginia. I think there's a few places left, but the mandate was that it had to be available nation or statewide by June 30th of 2020. So it should work pretty much anywhere. I will say, surprisingly enough, looking at the numbers, because I'm able to go in and track how many Texta911 calls we get, it's very, very small number. And we're not an outlier in that area. That's pretty much been the standard that I've talked to with my counterparts in other jurisdictions around the state. We were concerned we were going to see an overwhelming number of text calls that would actually make it difficult to manage. And I probably just jinxed us, but that's not been the case.
I think it's probably easier for people just to dial 911 and get straight through rather than try to do a text. It'd take me 30 minutes to do a text. So.
Mr. Kreiser,
Yes, sir, Mr. Allen.
we have some type of capability now where if somebody that has dementia walks off in their neighborhood, we can notify people in that neighborhood. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've had a reverse 911 system since 1997. We were the first in the area to acquire it, and we've upgraded that multiple times. But we do have the ability very quickly to send mass notifications to both wireless and wireline telephones, and we can segregate it out by all the way down to street level or as much as the entire city if we need to.
Would we have the capability to send out like a text message to all cell phones in the area that we're now online for text messages?
We can send text, we can send voice messages, we can send emails. There is a registration portal on the DEM website where gives you a link and you can go in and register your email and other things about you and your household. We also advertise that. We send out some bulletins at least once a year about that information, so you can go on there and register that information, and it automatically imports into our emergency notification system.
Thank you, sir. Very interesting. Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Anyone else have anything for Gary? Gary, thank you very much. You did a great job, my friend.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the continued support.
Yes, sir. All right, this brings us to item number 8, is to consider introducing and adopting an ordinance appropriating CARES Act funding in the amount of $300,073 to school funds for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021. Mr. Hamp?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is fairly straightforward. The key piece of information that I wish to convey is that these CARES funds are separate and distinct from those funds appropriated by the city. These funds came directly from the Commonwealth to the Waynesboro public school system.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Hamp? Nope. All right. With that, is there a motion to consider introducing and adopting an ordinance appropriating CARES Act fund in the amount of $373,000? Well, that's a big number. To school fund for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Hofstetter. I read Mr. Allen's lips, but you beat him to the punch.
I was muted.
Any discussion on this? All right, all in favor, show hands and say aye.
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 Any opposed? This motion carries 5-0. Thank you all very much. Item number 9 is to consider introducing and adopting an ordinance appropriating various malicious revenues received in the amount of $14,329 to multiple funds for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021. Mr. Hamp?
Yes, sir. Members of council, Mr. Mayor, the two funds involved are the general fund. The general fund is receiving about $9,100 worth of these miscellaneous revenues, and the water fund is receiving about $5,100. Sources of revenue vary from the sale of scrap and recyclable material to training reimbursements and small grants and donations.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Hamp? No. All right, is there a motion to adopt the ordinance appropriating various malicious revenues received in the amount of $14,329 from multiple funds for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021?
So moved.
I will make that motion.
I'll second.
Dr. Hofstetter gets the motion. Mr. Short seconds. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This motion carries 5-0. Thank you all very much. Item number 10 is to consider introducing an ordinance appropriating a portion of the refuge fund net position in the amount of $80,000 to the refuge fund for brush grinding services. Mr. Shaw.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, you may remember in November of 2018 that we experienced a really devastating ice storm that created the need for extensive cleanup in the community, mostly tree limbs and other vegetative debris. At that time, the Augusta County landfill where we're a partner out in Jolly View was overwhelmed, and so we started to take that debris to the original Waynesboro landfill site out on North 340 out on North Delphine. And subsequently, we've also taken some of our knuckle boom collection, bulk refuse collection there if it's entirely vegetative material. So now we have quite a pile, about 3,000 cubic yards of vegetative material. And we've been through this once before in my experience, where then we bring in a company that has a very large tub grinder that can grind that material. So we're at a point where we need to do that to manage the site. And so we're requesting the council appropriate funds out of the refuse fund retained earnings to do this.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Shaw? All right. Do we have a motion to introduce an ordinance appropriating a portion of the refuge fund net position in the amount of $80,000 to the refuse fund for brush grinding services?
I'd make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Hofstetter. Any discussion?
One quick question related to it is, was this already a planned expenditure for this fiscal year out of the refuse fund?
It was not planned for this year. No, it was. It's an expenditure that we've known was coming for some time, and we've been working between the city and Department of Environmental Quality for the timing of the grinding. That there are regulations, rules that apply to how large a pile of vegetative mass you can maintain without permits, and they're separate if it's composted. But no, it was not a budgeted expenditure.
Okay. I only asked because we had our budget meeting and, we delayed some revenue increases last year related to the funds. That was my question. All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Short. All right, any other discussion? All right, we already voted on this, right? Yeah. No?
Introduced
Okay.
an ordinance. Yeah.
Okay, so I introduced the ordinance. Do we have a motion to move the ordinance forward?
I think we'll vote on it at your next meeting, sir.
Oh, okay. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. So we got a first and second. The ordinance will be introduced and discussed and considered for approval at our March 8th regular business meeting. Sorry about that, you all. Item number 11 is to consider introducing an ordinance appropriating a portion of the sewer fund net position in the amount of $110,000 to the sewer fund to update SCADA systems for the water treatment plant. Mr. Shaw?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I know that some of you have been in either the water treatment plant or the wastewater treatment plant, and you've seen that these are modern facilities that rely on computerized technology for their operation and maintenance. The SCADA system, which is a supervisory control data acquisition system at the wastewater treatment plant, has failed. It runs on an operating system that we no longer will support going forward, primarily for security reasons. And we had planned to replace it in the upcoming budget year. We most recently replaced the SCADA system at the water treatment plant and the systems that run all of the remote facilities, pump stations, and so forth for both water and wastewater. So this failure is somewhat premature, but we've been able to put the system back together, and it's holding together temporarily, but there is an urgent need to go ahead and move forward with the upgrade of the system. So we're requesting the council appropriate $110,000, which again would be allocated from the wastewater funds retained earnings.
All right, any questions for Mr. Shaw?
Jim, do we have other apparatus that continues to run in support of our wastewater plant related, that runs off of Windows XP?
No, we've been replacing XP systems throughout the organization. And as I say, the water treatment plant and then the wastewater pump station SCADA systems have been replaced this past year, the current year. And so this would be a clean sweep of those systems. And it moves to a web-based system. So without getting into a lot of detail, it does create some redundancy between the systems because it isn't a PC-based system.
Great. Thank you. Well, I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right. Mr. Short made a motion to appropriate $110,000 to the sewer fund to update the SCADA system. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Any discussion? All right, this ordinance will be introduced and discussed will be considered at our March 8th regular business meeting. This brings us to item number 12, which is communications, correspondence, and calendar. Mr. Howe.
I don't have anything this evening, sir.
Thank you, sir. All right, that brings us to our citizen comment period. Let me get back to the top of my page here. If you wish to participate in the citizen comment period, you're asked to call 844-844-9200. You'll be prompted for an access code. Enter 398145 followed by the pound sign. When you hear Q&A has started, press the *6. If you want to speak, press the number 1 and you'll be put into a queue. Wait until the moderator tells you to start speaking, then you can share your comments with council. Remember, you've got 4 minutes, and about 30 seconds before it ends, somebody will give you a signal that you've got 30 seconds left. Citizen comment period is now open.
Mr. Mayor, we do not have anyone in the queue at the moment.
Okay. All right, with no one in queue, that brings us to item number 14, which is to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Do we have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Short. Any discussion? All in favor, show of hands and say, aye. Any opposed? This motion carries 5-0. Hey, guys, have a good 2 weeks, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.